If she only knew. I'm standing in the checkout line with my two kids, and they're begging me for candy, and they're begging me for chips, and I'm like, oh, fine. And so I let my kids get it, and I break out my food stamps, and I pay for my groceries, and I look behind me, and there's a middle class woman looking at me, and she's looking down her nose at me. And I know she's judging me. I know she's thinking, why are you letting your kids have chips and candy? I know she's thinking, why can't you keep your kids under control? I know she's thinking, why are you paying with food stamps? You're on food stamps. Your kids don't need candy. And I know that she's judging me, but if she only knew. If she only knew that I don't want to live on food stamps. If she only knew that when I was a kid, I loved school. I know she's thinking, you need to get a job. If she only knew how hard it is for me to get a job. When I was a kid, I loved school. I loved it. I loved my library day. It was my favorite. I loved going to the library and getting books because I loved to read, and my mom was too busy, too drunk, too not there to take me to the library. And so library day at school was the best, and I was always bummed because they wouldn't let me have more than 2 books at a time. And I also loved it when they gave fruit at lunch because there was never fruit in our house. Only chips and pizza and ramen noodles, spaghetti. Because my mom was in and out of jobs, in and out of boyfriends, and there was never enough money. So we always had junk food in the house. But my teachers told me, you know, if you study hard, you can go to college and you can get a good job. So I believed them. And I studied hard. I brought my tattered 30-year-old textbook home, and I would read it, and I got really good grades. And when I was a senior, I got a scholarship, and that was awesome. But things were tough, because I would go home, and a lot of times I was by myself. And actually, those were kind of the good days. Because my mom was constantly bouncing back and forth between boyfriend to boyfriend, and we would move whenever she got a new one in with them, and sometimes it was good, and sometimes it wasn't. And when I turned 16, it got worse, because my mom's boyfriend started to take a little more interest in me than he had before, and my mom got mad at me. She thought I was trying to steal her boyfriend, so she would yell at me and scream at me. So I started staying with other friends instead of staying at home as much as I could, and I tried to avoid my mom, and I tried to avoid her boyfriend. And so when I was a senior and I got a scholarship, that was great, but the college was 2 hours away, and I didn't have a car, so how was I going to get there? But my teacher told me, my counselor told me, there's a bus, and you can take the bus, and you can go to college. And I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So on move-in day, I packed up my couple of backpacks worth of clothes. My aunt, for graduation, gave me sheets and towels, and off I went to college. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to break out of tenement buildings. I'm going to break out of food stamps. I'm going to have that life that everybody says you can have here in America. But here I am, a black girl from the hood, living with 2 suburban white girls. I might as well have gone to college on Mars. I had no understanding of the world, of the things they talked about, of the world they lived in. And it was hard. They could go home on the weekends and do laundry. Their moms would send them $20 for pizza. I didn't have that. It was hard. I had nobody to encourage me. I had no one to tell me I can do it. And so when it was hard, I just was overwhelmed. And when I went home for Christmas, I didn't go back. I got a job at the grocery store, making minimum wage. And I thought I could do it. And then the student loan payments kicked in, because even though I had a scholarship, it wasn't a full scholarship. And the student loan payments kicked in. And I was making it. I was doing it for a while. And then my mom broke up with her boyfriend, and she moved in with me because she didn't have anywhere else to go. And now I had to pay for not only me, but her on minimum wage, paying for my food, paying for my student loans. And I got a boyfriend, and things got better. Things were good. I really thought things would be great. And then I got pregnant, and he left. And so once the baby was born and my hospital bills rolled in, because let's be real, when you're making minimum wage, you don't have great health insurance. Or any insurance. No longer could I pay for the student loans. I couldn't pay for anything. I had hospital bills. I had a baby to take care of. I'm working minimum wage. I got to put my baby in daycare. And so it was tough. And I got further and further behind. I got more and more into debt. And then I found a new boyfriend, and things were looking up. And we were in love, and I thought for sure he was the one. We were engaged. It was going to be great. We moved in together. Everything was going better. I was able to make the bills. And then I found out he had another girlfriend who was also pregnant. And so I had to leave because I'm not putting up with that. And now I'm living alone with 2 kids. I've got my student loans have defaulted. So now that payment is more than I could ever imagine paying off. I'm still making minimum wage. Well, no, I got a raise, because I've been there for a couple years. I'm making just over minimum wage, trying to raise 2 kids. And I know this woman behind me in the store is looking down at her nose at me, thinking, why doesn't she get a job? Well, I have a job. And she's probably thinking, oh, why don't you get another job? How am I supposed to get another job when I've got 2 young kids at home and no one to look after them? How am I supposed to get a better job if I don't go to college? I can't go to college because I still have the student loan payments from the first time I went. And how am I going to have time to work, raise my kids, and go to college? And so if only this woman knew. If only she knew how hard I am trying, how exhausted I am at the end of the day, how much I hate living on food stamps, how much I hate that I have to work this minimum wage job, how much I don't want to be this exhausted. I know I'm not parenting my kids the best. I'm doing the best I can. If only she knew. If only she knew that I'm trying my best instead of looking down her nose at me. Now, you guys know me well enough to know that's not my story. Right? I heard this story a few years ago, long enough ago that I couldn't track the actual story down. I had to rewrite it. I think it was a true story when I heard it, but I could not figure out where I heard it. I couldn't find it. But I remembered enough of it to rewrite it. But the sad reality is I'm a teacher, and all the pieces of that story I have heard in my kids. While that might not be the singular story of one of my kids, all those parts are pieces that I've heard from my kids. I just last week had a girl say, we were talking about holidays. She's like, I hate Christmas. I said, why do you hate Christmas? She's like, because I don't ever get nothing. Everyone else gets stuff. Everyone else has this great time. I get nothing. And it broke my heart. I've had a kid when I was teaching health. We were talking about nutrition. And I'd say, you really need to eat fruits and vegetables. She's like, I can't eat fruits and vegetables. I'm like, what do you mean? She says, my mom doesn't ever buy fruits and vegetables. All we ever have are chips and frozen pizza. I had one kid say, we don't ever get fruits and vegetables because we don't have a can opener and we can't open them. What? We had a kid years ago and he had part of his leg went numb. We found out the reason was he doesn't have a bed. He was sleeping on the floor. Right here in Ludlow, Kentucky, we have a kid who doesn't have a bed. And I have a kid who come in and he's like, man, my back really hurts. I'm like, why does your back hurt? I've been sleeping on the couch. Well, don't you have a bed? Well, yeah, but it has so many bed bugs in it, I don't want to sleep in it. And so while this story that I just told you is fictional, it is many people's reality. There are so many people in our community who are doing the best they can to get by. They are trying their absolute hardest, but they can't get it done. And there are other people who are sitting behind them in the grocery store line, who live 2 doors down, who are thinking, why can't they get their life together? Why can't that single mom control her kids? I can't believe all I ever see those kids eating is Cheetos. Why can't that drunkard who always throws his beer bottles in my yard get clean and get a job, get a better job? Why can't that person who keeps losing their job, why can't they keep their job? Oh, my neighbor's got that loud car. Why doesn't he get that car fixed? And we sit here and it's so easy for those of us who have had the encouragement of a family. Like for me personally, my parents made sure I went to college. I had that benefit of being, I didn't even think it was an option to not go to college. I had the encouragement. My parents would send me pizza money. I had a car to get a job. My parents made sure when I turned 16, I had it. Well, it was a truck, but I had a vehicle when I turned 16. But we have a lot of people in our community who don't have that. And it might not even be poverty. We have a lot of people in our community who really struggle with mental health addiction, like mental health issues, who struggle with addiction, who struggle with drugs or alcohol. And I know it can be really easy to sit, like I've got one in my neighborhood, and I hear him like, oh, and I get mad. And then I remember, like, I'm sure he didn't choose to be an alcoholic. I'm sure he didn't choose to have that happen in his life. And yes, there are choices he made. Absolutely, we each make choices that affect our lives. But it is, each person on this planet was carefully designed by the Lord to live a life of shalom. And if you were a single mom with 2 or 3 or 5 kids, bouncing from house to house, struggling to make it by, you are not living the life that God made for you. If you're a drug addict or an alcoholic, you are not living the life that the Lord planned out for you. You are living short of your shalom. And so those of us who are in alignment with the Lord, shouldn't we do what we can to not number one, we shouldn't judge them, but 2, what can we do? Shouldn't we be thinking, like, what can I do to help you get into your shalom? And so I think about, like, Jesus hung out with these kind of people. He got ridiculed for it all the time. They'd be like, ugh, why are you hanging out with those prostitutes, those drunkards, those idol worshipers? Why are you hanging out with those lowlifes? And he was like, why wouldn't I hang out with these lowlifes, basically? He's like, why would I judge them? They are the people who need me the most. And so we are told over and over in the Bible that we need to be loving on people. And so I have just one verse for you today. It's from 1 John 4. So John, this was Jesus' beloved, as he calls himself. John was one of the apostles. He says, our love for others is our grateful response to the love that God gave to us. I can love others because I am loved. I am a cup being filled with the love of the Lord, and because I am filled with that, I don't take my bottle and go home. Like, I don't take my fill cup and be like, thanks, God, and just go off to myself. Our job as Christians is to take my full cup, to pour it out on those single moms, to pour it out on the drug addicts, to pour it out on the alcoholics, to pour it out on those neighbors who we just want, to pour it out on those people at work who are late all the time and don't get their work done. Our job is to pour that love out because we can always get a refill. When we're Christians, we always have a refill, a free refill. Not like those restaurants where you go and you get the can and you got to pay for the second one. We're like Ponderosa, right? Like you can just keep going back to that bar and getting a refill. And so because we get the free refills, we should be demonstrating that love to others. Anyone can say, I love God, but have hatred towards another believer. This makes you a phony. If you say that you love God, but you hate other people, you look down your nose at other people, you look down at them and be like, oh, they need to get their stuff together, then you're a phony. Because if you don't love your brother or sister who you can see, how can you love God who you can't see? For he has given us this command: whoever loves God must also demonstrate love to others. Even the prostitutes, the homeless people, the drug addicts, the alcoholics, the people living in poverty who can't get a job. Because if someone's living in poverty, like I confess, like mine is the people who don't even seem to try to get a job. They just want to sit at home and play video games and take government assistance. I'm like, get off your butt and get a job. Like for me, that's the ones that I get frustrated with. But there's something going on there. There is some reason that they don't have a job. There's something in their heart, in their spirit, where there's a poverty in their heart, in their life, that has kept them from living their best life. And isn't it my job instead to love them to show them that I care about them, to encourage them, to pray for them. And maybe the more and more I pray for them, the Lord will show me how I can love them in a way that is meaningful. Right now I might just be like, "Ugh." And if I start praying for that person, the Lord might reveal to me, well, maybe they need this. Maybe they need encouragement. Maybe they just need a friend. Maybe they just need to be told you can do it. Because I know in coaching, I've got girls who are like, I can't do it. This is going to be terrible. And I'm like, you can do it. Just do it. And then they go do it. And I'm like, see, I told you. Sometimes people just need to be believed in. They need to be valued. They need to think they belong. And so our job as Christians is to love everybody, no matter what a hot mess they are. Because if you only knew the challenges they have had, if you only knew the abuse they have suffered, if you only knew the hopelessness that they feel, you might understand where they are instead of understand instead of looking down our nose at them. And we are told that if we don't love them, we're a phony. Because God has commanded us, not ask hey, if it works for you. No, our command is to love God and love others. Jesus said, love God and love others. So if there's someone in your periphery that is not living out the shalom of the Lord, they are not living the best life that God planned for them, they don't need our scorn, they need our love. And so I challenge you this week to ask the Lord, to pray to the Lord and say, who is it in my sphere who I am not treating with the love of the Lord? Is there someone or a group of people? Is there a group of people, a type of people who I am looking down on, who I am judging, who instead I should be loving? And he might pull up someone, you might be like, oh. I know sometimes I have that response. I'm like, no, Lord, I want to dislike them. And he's like, nope. And remember, God loves you. So he's not going to be mad at you or disappointed in you because you have that response. He wants to walk you through it because he wants to get all the cogs in the right place. Remember, we've been talking about these cogs, right? So the blue one is your God cog. Once that is in place, and the red one is yourself, and the yellow one is your family. So now the green one is others. It's those people around us. How can we, if they are out of alignment, if they are not living the life that God made for them, how can we help get them centered on the Lord, centered on a place where they were made to be? How can we help them restore their shalom? How can we use the dominion given to us as Christians, as humans? How can we help them get back into alignment? And all of God's people said, amen. All right, if you have not